Welcome to ACC Nation. Our special guest is Ken Cross, the founder and editor of College Hoops Watch, co-host of the Marching to Madness college basketball podcast. He's written and reported for multiple sports outlets covering everything from hoops to ice hockey. Welcome back, Ken. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Jim. It's a pleasure, man.
You were talking with me just a few moments ago before we started recording about all the different places that your sports and outlets that you're doing things for. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in that aspect of your life right now, because it's busy year round.
Yeah, I try to stay busy year round. Of course, Marching to Madness, we're in the 5th year on there. We've got like 631 podcasts. The latest one went up, I think, Monday. It's Hall of Famer, Coach Tom Penders, who was at Texas and Houston and as well as Rhode Island. He, in fact, ACC fans will remember that Rhode Island team went down into Chapel Hill like in '88 and knocked off Syracuse and got to the Sweet 16. And then, Texas became a reality for him. So that one is the latest one. We do it coast to coast, all 357, I think, or 358 schools are in play. Some help us, some don't. We knew that coming in. But the ones that help us are up on there because we pretty much contacted people extensively over the 5 years. And, sometimes when like a sports media person changes or a coach changes or something all at once, that school's in play, which are a couple this year that I hope come into play too. But, that's good. And then, just writing. I mean, I'm still with Lindy Sports. I write on their website. And right now we're writing college football copy. It's writing season. Right after that, I cover the Lightning down here for InsideHockey.com, which I enjoy hockey. Again, I'm a basketball guy, so you got to make that happen when you got time.
That's right.
We got the Raptors here in Tampa Bay. That's been fun. I'll tell you what I've learned. I think Tampa is a more viable location for an NBA team than Orlando. And I think it would sell here. And I'll tell you why. Everybody says, oh, it's 100 miles away or whatever. You ain't getting to Orlando on I-4 at the time of day most of us have to drive.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I think that, and then, of course, the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. I continue with ESPN Radio, where I covered the Panthers for 20 years when I was in Charlotte. And I did the Bucs the first 2 years with COVID-19. We were out this year, as they kind of paused it, but I'm hoping everything comes back. So a myriad of things. I try to touch all sports and, just keep moving on from there.
Busy.
Yeah. Busy.
You like it down in Tampa? Because you've been down there a couple of years now. You've had a little bit of a chance to kind of settle in. So
yeah, I'm a Charlottean, but I've settled in here. It's nice. The weather's great. Although this winter it wasn't great. It was chilly. I didn't know it got in the high 30s as far south. In the winter. I think that's why everybody comes to Florida, maybe is, it's either work related or weather related or what have you. But it's a nice area, the Tampa Bay sports scene is thriving.
Yeah.
And, it's the only thing I miss is how close together the schools are for college basketball and college football. Because down here they're spread out, and you got Miami, FSU, Florida, USF, UCF, and then you get into the Atlantic Sun and stuff during basketball season. Well, as you know, up in North Carolina, there are 11 different D1 conferences in basketball in that state. So it's an embarrassment of riches there. I tell you what, after you live there so long, you take it for granted.
Well, not now.
Not now. Yeah, not now. Yeah.
Hey, we know that you're enjoying the sun and the fun down there in Tampa, and it really took everything for us to convince you not to wear a thong or a
Yeah,
Speedo. Or
we don't want to go there. We don't want to go there.
at least on camera. Let's.
Yeah, well, we don't want to go there anyway.
By the way,
there's enough problems in the world right now without that happening.
you can catch the video portion of this podcast on our YouTube channel, ACC Nation. So.
And I will not be on there in any cameo role wearing a Speedo, a thong, or any other erotic swimwear or anything like that that's going to cause you to have to shut your show down.
That's good. That's good.
It's the little things I do for society.
The little things make all the difference in the world. Hey, so much to talk about. So let's get into basketball. One of the things that prompted me to ask you back on the show here was reading one of your tweets where you're talking about the number of players, the percentage of players in men's college basketball who have entered the transfer portal. And honestly, it stopped me dead in my tracks because I didn't expect that. I knew there were a lot. But wow. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about how many players, the percentage of players are in the portal, because it seems like it just keeps building. And then we'll go from there. We'll kind of get into your thoughts on the transfer portal, how it's affecting schools in general, and let it roll.
All right.
So right now, percentage-wise, how many players from college, the NCAA Division I players?
Well, it was about 1/3 last week. Now it's up around, it's closing in on 1,500, which is an unprecedented territory. But whenever you factor in the fact that they took away the year you have to sit out, they gave them the free year due to COVID-19, you're going to get some of this stuff. I mean, there were whole teams that some of them were mid-majors that were changing coaches that all of a sudden showed up in the transfer portal, and then you got to go re-recruit. It's really, I think in the end, it's a nightmare for coaches because they're going to have to re-recruit their roster.
That's one of the things that crossed my mind here. I started thinking about, and not to be sarcastic, but coaches will earn their salaries now. So not as if they didn't already, but
yeah,
this is it is a nightmare scenario to some degree. Now, the NCAA just last week went ahead and you alluded to this. It said, okay, you get a one-time shot here of instantly playing when you go into the transfer portal. That made it a lot easier for people to say, hey, maybe I want to go someplace else. Maybe I don't like it at Duke. Maybe I'm going to go to North Carolina. And everybody can do that now. And we're seeing a lot of transfers within the ACC specifically, but tell me a little bit about what you think about this, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and is there an upside to this whole thing other than for the obviously for the players?
Well, coaches are the best adapters there are. So you can give them one scenario and change it, and they're good at all of them in general at thinking on their feet and going in the opposite direction. That being said, the NCAA couldn't give this too much credible thought because once again they failed, and we can talk about NCAA failures and probably last into the evening here because that's what they do. They fail. They fail miserably. The coaches, the players, the parents, anybody associated with college athletics, they're sitting up there in their glass house in Indianapolis making money on the heads of these kids who are not getting paid any money out of what's a multi-billion-dollar revenue stream, especially for March Madness. And they failed them here with this transfer portal because you can wind up at 3 or 4 different schools in your career if you're not seriously pursuing a degree. It's easy to, just take a kid in and put him in a general college every year and let him max out, his 4 years and his graduate transfer role or whatever. I don't like it, but it might be good for the kids to let them see what happens. I kind of think after the newness wears off of it and the anomaly settles, it might settle back down in a couple of years. But I mean, we're going to have there's no yearbook or publication on the market right now that will adequately be able to do justice what these rosters are going to look like 1 through 15 in the fall. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that perspective, but since you are working in that line of things, I can understand. Let me ask you something. And it struck me when you were talking about the players and the impact, not only on the teams, the coaches, et cetera, but if a player can bounce around as much as they seem to be able to do now, is this going to have some kind of an ultimate impact upon them when it comes down to getting into the NBA? I mean, you can take a shot. Let me give you a scenario. Say you're with a program that maybe is not doing so great right now, but if you look at the future, and sometimes kids can't always see this, but if you have a little patience and you look at the future, that team's getting ready to turn the corner because of the recruits and stuff that are coming in. Got a good coach, and it's coming, but you're impatient. So you say, well, I'm going to go with somebody who's better known and who's had a good program, but they didn't look closely at the lack of recruits coming in. So they transfer from a potential winner to somebody who looks like a winner and is not. And it kind of puts them in a bad spot. You think that's going to hurt their prospects with getting into the NBA?
It can, because of who they might have around them there that they didn't have around them at the former team they came from. However, I think a lot of them now, you're not going to see many 4-year kids go and be drafted. There's only 2 rounds, and I think now most of these guys are going to be, if they're not 4-year players, they're going to be 1 or 2-year players. And I think that makes a difference. I think that, just with what we're seeing right now nationally and how everything is shifting and stuff, it's going to really not do justice to mid-major basketball, because the power conferences and the multi-bid leagues are going to gobble these kids up once they make a name for themselves at a school or whatever that's, that could go 20-0 in a conference, lose a tournament game and be, in the NIT or whatever. And that's a bad thing, man. You don't ever want to devalue mid-major basketball or these one-bid leagues, because, I mean, there's some great coaches in there. We're seeing them move up, like Wes Miller moved, to Cincinnati, for example. Excellent coach. Steve Forbes, my man, goes over to Wake Forest, and he'll get that program up and running. He's already recruited pretty well there now. And then Pat Kelsey, he goes from Winthrop, and it would have been a travesty, but if they would have lost in the Big South tournament, they wouldn't have gotten in the NCAA at 21-1 or 2. So he goes over to Charleston, So what's next for him? There's a lot of guys that are just awesome communicators, strategists, people in those one-bid leagues and mid-majors that they're going to get. I'm afraid those schools and their top players are going to get lost in the shuffle of this.
Well, we've got the this additional factor here that I want to explore a little bit more, seniors having that extra availability.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the benefit of 2020 hindsight now, Ken. At the time, it seemed like a pretty good idea.
Mm-hmm.
How about now?
No, it's too. I mean, it's too much. I mean, you don't know when you lay down at night. You don't know if you're a head coach at any school who may come up the next day and say, "Hey, I'm transferring." And some of these transfers make no sense. They seem like lateral moves in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Seem like moves that, to like you were saying, the places where a certain player is not going to have as much around him. So, his numbers take a hit, or maybe the way he performs takes a hit. There's too many issues, I think, with this. Again, it's NCAA made, so there you go.
And it's like you said, we could talk about the NCAA. But we won't.
Good.
Because that's a topic for a whole nother show.
Yeah.
And one I'm not really sure I ever want to delve into, because there's more than two handfuls of people I know that look at it the same way you do.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, there's not a whole lot of love lost. Let's just put it that way. And we'll leave that one alone. Out of all the transfer portal people that you have seen who've gotten into it, and there's well over, as you said, 1,500 something long. I mean, there is a ton of talent in there. Who stands out to you as somebody who's an immediate impact transfer and who's probably going to make a huge difference for a team in any conference coming up in the coming season?
Well, Louisville is bringing in some shooters, and that's the first team that comes to my mind. They got Matt Cross, no relation, and Noah Locke from Florida, who's an excellent shooter, coming in there. And then I think my man Bruce Pearl down at Auburn did a really good job. He got to Eastern Kentucky. The kid, I can't call his last name right now, but he was the freshman of the year in the Ohio Valley Conference. So he'll go to Auburn, as will Zep Jasper from Charleston. So those two come to mind. I think a guy that he doesn't have the most talent in the world. What he does well, and he's going to take a sixth year, is John Fulkerson at Tennessee. He's not going to show up in a running game. He's not going to run the floor and do anything like Miles Bridges did for the Hornets last week. But what he does, he rebounds well. He plays defense, and he's a leader. So he comes back in there. And then I think that a lot of teams now who didn't consider themselves as part of the transfer circuit are going to be part of the transfer circuit. I think North Carolina already has brought in a couple of high level transfers right there. I think one of them being Brady Manek from Oklahoma.
It's going to be an interesting season. And I think that based upon everything that we've been talking about and just touching the surface of, it strikes me that college basketball for the next couple of years is going to be loaded. It's going to be dynamic in a way that we haven't seen for quite a while. That's not a bad thing for
it's the best sport there is. Best sport there is.
I'll argue with you a bit on
that. You know why? You turn that on every night between November and March or early April. You're going to see a Sweet 16 caliber game somewhere in the country. And nobody else can say that. I mean, the football now is played for three teams: Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. And then you might fill in the blank with somebody. They don't even have equal representation. I mean, how phony is that?
We'll see if there's any impact transfer portal wise and the senior aspect wise for football in the coming season too.
That'll be interesting too.
That needs to be examined just a bit as well. So the latest ESPN way too early top 25 and Joe Lunardi's bracketology, both of them out. The top 25 came out in early April. Lunardi just popped his bracket out, and it's really early to be talking about this stuff,
especially now.
I am still going to bring it up because it's good, as they say, water cooler fodder. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit here. Let's see what you think of first of all, the top 5, according to this way too early top 25, is Gonzaga, UCLA, Purdue, Ohio State, and Kansas. Seem reasonable?
Yeah, it seems reasonable. I mean, they're gonna tell you what, man. If they not learned lining their bird cage with all these Big Ten teams after this tournament, and now they're putting Ohio State and Purdue. Purdue, I agree with. I think Purdue could win it this next year because of who they have coming back, and they're extremely well coached by Matt Painter. But it's been ad nauseum on the Big Ten again this year, and I think it doubled down. It was just extra. And they lose 8 teams the first weekend, which, by the way, I said there would be a free fall, although I had 3 moving on to the Sweet 16. Nobody saw this. But, that's the thing that strikes me. I think Gonzaga is always going to be there. They got Chet Holmgren, the number 1 player in the country, a big kid out of Minnesota. He's going across there to Spokane. UCLA with Mick Cronin. Mick Cronin, the last 2 years, has been without peer in how he's turned the mindset of the UCLA Bruins into like we saw, a Final Four caliber team. And this year, without his leading scorer and without one of his top 2 or 3 subs in the post in a rotation, he's playing with 6 players, basically. And Johnny Juzang, I mean, he made his money right there in March for the Bruins. And I like both of those. I think the Pac-12 is going to be deep again, and I think they're going to have the ability to make those runs again. Kansas, they're always around. I mean, you kind of look at them and realize they're going to probably fade somewhere, and they faded early this year. In fact, USC out of the Pac-12 beat them by 34 points in a monumental beatdown in the round of 32. So, by the way, hats off to the CBS and Turner people for the way they set that tournament up. I hope they go to the Saturday, Monday, and Sunday, Tuesday thing from now on, because they stack those 4 games right up on Saturday and Sunday, and you don't have to miss any of them. Maybe start them a little earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, at least for anybody that's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Just to be a little selfish there. So let me get your impression of the ACC teams that are in this top 25 mix. And these are ranked, or as I read them out, they're going to be basically how they are in that top 25. I'm not going to say where they are. Florida State is the top team. Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, North Carolina. And then the plus teams. This is outside of the top 25. At 28 is Notre Dame, 29, Virginia. So let's start with Florida State and some impressions there on Leonard Hamilton's group and what to expect.
I love Leonard Hamilton. That's the first thing. The team it's going to be a viable candidate, to win it again. They should have won it this year. They had a tough game there at Notre Dame, and then Virginia just kind of outpaced them there at the end. And then they lost to Georgia Tech in a tournament where they turned the ball over a lot. And a lot of that was Georgia Tech's hard to play, man. Josh Pastner is one of the top coaches in the country in game planning and figuring out how he can get you to play his game. And that's what he did all year, basically. They had a great run. But I'll take Florida State to win it again. I take Leonard Hamilton in the Hall of Fame with my man Bob Huggins. Please vote these guys in now. Okay, if anybody's listening. Had Virginia Tech in there. Mike Young, I'm not sure outside of the coaching circles how appreciated Mike Young was until he took this Virginia Tech job, because he was at Wofford over 30 years and he built that program basically from scratch. And now, we're seeing a little bit. We saw them last year, how competitive they are, how competitive they can be. I like Syracuse. I think Buddy Boeheim should go in as the ACC preseason player of the year. And then Jim Boeheim adds Jimmy Boeheim, his other son. A lot of this, again, is going to depend on some of these teams, how many transfers wind up, plus how many kids come back. I think a lot of that could be the case for Carolina as well. I think Carolina, if they get the people back that can make a difference. And by the way, Walker Kessler was one of those transfers leaving. It was a big pickup for Auburn as well. If they get the kids back that you think might come back or should come back, they're going to be fine. It's transition, but it was handed off in the right manner to somebody that it's going to be seamless with Hubert Davis. It was a good move there because Roy's the man, and I knew he would do this with class. I just didn't know if it's going to be this year. And then I think, you mentioned Notre Dame. Mike Bray will get them back. They've had a couple of tough years, man. And a lot of that's been due to injury. Virginia, right? They lost like 3 people to the portal. And I can't help but believe that's 3 kids that have got overall really good offensive games that want to showcase those. You don't get much of a chance there to do that, or generally they haven't, except for the year they won the national championship. But again, they had studs there, DeAndre Hunter, Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, who's playing major minutes right now for the Oklahoma City Thunder and doing a good job, by the way. And you got to throw Louisville in there. I don't know why he didn't have them.
Yeah.
They should have been in the tournament this year. Even as tough as it was, they survived 3 COVID issues and survived the fact that the athletic director from the University of Kentucky was in charge of the committee.
we won't go there either.
Okay. I'm just saying. Just saying. Every time something happens in Louisville, you just got to point east about 75 miles.
Just look at Lexington. They'll do it every time. Oh, man. So here's Lenardi's take on the NCAA tournament. He's got the number 1 seeds as Gonzaga, UCLA, Kansas, Alabama.
Not again. They're going to be good, but they're not a 2 seed this time. They could probably rise to 4. They lost too much. They do have a couple of really good incoming players, but they lost a lot. You talk about John Petty, Jaden Shackelford now, looking at the NBA, Herbert Jones was the player of the year and the defensive player of the year in the league. You're not going to replace those people, and they're not going to be, and there's no way they're going to be a 1 seed. I think there's a lot of that carryover from the football season. They want to just pass the baton. They pass the torch, but it doesn't work like that in basketball.
No, not in the least. In fact, sometimes I question whether it works that way in football altogether.
Oh yeah.
That's an interesting setup. We're going to have a look at both Lenardi's bracketology and the top 25, way too early top 25 on ACCNation.net. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail there, and look at the projections for the 21-22 season. So I'm going to end on a foodie note here. You've spent a great deal of time. Well, you spent a great deal of time in Charlotte.
Yep.
You spent a great
22
deal
years.
of time at Appy State.
Mhm.
So
4 years.
we've got a little idea of what the good places to eat are there. Been down in Tampa long enough now. Do you have let me just ask you this. Do you have a favorite food that you really, really love to go out and get? And then where do you go in Tampa to find that food?
You know what? There's nowhere you're going to go that's going to be even a player for hot dogs as good as Green's Lunch in downtown Charlotte. I mean, I can go in that place and eat 3 of them, and I don't need to do that. Okay, I'm trying to keep it real, with the abs and all that. But in Tampa, you can't go wrong. Like there's a chain out here in Clearwater and Frenchie's. It's a seafood chain that's really good. It's a little overpriced, like everything else down here. But anyway, that's good. It depends on like what you're in the mood for. I tend to be a seafood person, so I'm going to stick with that Frenchie's.
So you moved to the right place then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like hot dogs, I tell you, and barbecue. I hadn't had good barbecue since I left Charlotte.
Well, you won't find it in Florida.
No. I don't care whether it's Western or Eastern. You name it, you got barbecue. And I used to think, well, I eat too much barbecue up here,
No.
But no.
No such thing.
No such thing. I miss it. If any of those barbecue places are, listening, and you want to send, some stuff, please do DoorDash.
Hook you up, man. I'll tell you, they'll put it on dry ice and ship it down to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tell you, find some place that'll work something out here.
Yeah.
Why not? Interesting. And I always throw I throw these food questions in just because I like to go out and eat too. So I like everything. I've not met anything that, well, there's a couple of things I won't eat, but it's very few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a choice, and not everybody eats dessert, but if you had a choice of dessert, do you have a favorite dessert?
Yeah, I like pecan pie or key lime pie. Either one.
You're in the right place.
And I'll tell you one thing I've had to get away from is peanut butter Oreos.
Oh,
I mean, when I open a bag of those, they're not around long. I mean, if they're in here over 2 days, it's a rumor.
Hey man, peanut butter is good for you. It's the
rest of it's the Oreos. Yeah, it's the Oreos.
I can't say I've had peanut butter Oreos, but
they're delicious. I'm telling you, they're dangerous.
Yeah. Just to give you an example, how things go here in this household,
mm-hmm.
We don't have dessert in this house.
Mm.
And so my wife mentioned to me a week or 2 ago, she really loved coconut cream pie.
Mm-hmm.
So we're out at the grocery store and I say, let's look for the ingredients. I'll make you one. And couldn't find it was gone. It was wiped out. The coconut cream was gone. I said, well, I hate to disappoint you, but I guess if we have to, we'll settle for some frozen. And I didn't say anything after that. So we, it's a couple more minutes going down the aisles and everything. And she says, you still interested in that? I said, it's not me that's interested in that. So I think it's been a year since we've had anything, and it's sitting downstairs in that refrigerator right now.
There you go.
So that's hers. So anyway, Ken, as always, an absolute pleasure to talk to you about sports, about everything, about life in general.
Yeah.
We don't talk enough. We could talk sports and a lot of other things constantly. I keep up to date with what you're doing through social media, basically. And let me just encourage everybody, go to collegehoopswatch.com and please listen to his podcast, because if you want interviews of coaches, and as Ken indicated, it is across the spectrum. Every conference, he's talking to people that these are some of the up and comers, some of the people who've been around for a while. You'll get a good feel for what's really happening in college basketball by following Ken. Now, you can follow him on Twitter as well, but definitely check out his site. It ought to be on your instant likes, and it's on our links page. You can find it there. If you forget it, just go to our links page and look for College Hoops Watch, and it'll take you right into the page and to his podcast as well. Our thanks to special guest Ken Cross for fitting us into a busy schedule, sir. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Jim. Anytime, man. I like doing this type thing, so it's not a problem.
Want more ACC sports news and interviews? Make ACCNation.net your homepage or follow us on Google News. Be sure to subscribe to ACC Nation on your favorite podcast or streaming radio platform. While you're there, we'd appreciate a rating and your support through PayPal. Follow us on social media at ACC Nation. And you'll find Will on Twitter at WillsWorldMN, and I'm at ACC The Q. Until next time, cheers.
Score.